Hey guys, Bart from TST Industries here. In this video, we're going to show you the installation of the TST Industries Integrated Taillight from 2012 and up Honda CBR1000RR. Our taillights are available in a choice of clear or smoked lens. For the purpose of this video, we will be installing the clear version. Our units feature OEM style connectors for a plug-and-play installation, and they also come with a set of load balancing resistors in case you want to slow down your flash rate, and also an install sheet that takes you step by step through the installation. But who really wants to read? That's why we do these videos. All right, a recommended accessory for this taillight is our Gen 2 flasher relay. It'll do away with the need for wiring in these resistors. It's just a plug and play installation. We have a separate video for that. Hope you guys check that out on our channel. And now, without further ado, we'll get into the installation. So in the first step, we will be removing the seats, starting with the passenger seat. So to undo the driver's seat, we first need to gain access underneath it, under this side shroud. So I will get my forefinger under the tip of it and pry it off. And there's a friction fastener that needs to be released straight out, perpendicular to the center axis of the bike, just like that. And then this whole panel pivots out to unlock it. Here's the friction fastener that came out of this location, straight out. All right. Once this is loosened, we have access to this phillips screw. Now you can use a really large head phillips screwdriver with a lot of force towards the inside, towards the center of the bike. I prefer to use an impact type gun that allows me to get a lot of pressure on it, and it comes out really easily. All right, once I get this done, I will repeat the procedure on the left side of the bike. And now that I have the seat released, it should just come right out. Front leading edge first, and then disengage these tabs from the back and put it to the side. On this following step, we will be disconnecting some of the plugs that need to be taken out in order to release the components that will be coming off the bike. Now, generally, you won't see this on other bikes. This is an accessory that was added aftermarket. We'll need to find this 3-conductor plug. This is the one, there's only one white plug in this area. The way I like to release it is using a little flathead screwdriver. Pry up on the lock and withdraw it. Makes it really simple. Now, this is the main plug for your tail light, and now we will also need to release this plug, which is connected to the sub harness that connects this portion of the bike to the signals, and it's actually snaked through the tail section and through the fender. So we will need to extract the fender and then disassemble it so we could take this back out and plug it back in here. So again, little screwdriver comes in really handy here. All right, now that we have these out, we can get them routed to the inside of the trunk and ensure that they won't be snagged as we start disassembling some of these components here. In addition, I'm going to take this rubber out. It'll make working here a little bit easier. Alright, so it's meant to really just be pushed off to the side and remain in place. So I'll just unclip it, and now we'll move forward to the rear here, where I will unroute the tail light wire from the guide clip here. And I know it's tough for you guys to see in here, because the light is kind of dim. But all these wires will need to be taken out from the routing clips that exist on the forward section of this undertail, so we could actually remove the components that these wires go to. Following my attempt to unroute all these wires in the trunk area, I've realized that we will actually have to unclip one of the undertail shrouds, the painted one, from the bike to be able to get to the routing clips and effectively get these wires out of their routing guide. So this next step will begin by the removal of 5 fasteners, 4 in here and 1 under the fuse box. Now we have this one remaining fastener underneath the fuse box. To lift the fuse box out of place, we'll need a little flathead screwdriver. We'll pry up on the tab that locks it in place, and then pull the fuse box out. This is the tab that you'll need to pry up just slightly, and that will release it. And we can put that to the side, and we'll find that last fastener here. All right, so now that the fasteners are out, I'm going to illustrate to you guys here from the bottom that this panel is loose from the undertail, and now it will need to be slid forward to unlock it from the following locations. There's a large slide locking feature on either side here and here. There's also a smaller sliding lock feature that interacts between the painted panel and the black plastic panel here. And there are also 2, one on either side here and here. All of those will need to be disengaged. So how do we do that? We will pry away on the bottom first, and then up top, and manipulate this panel so that as we pry away and push forward, it'll become unlocked. All right, and before we start extracting it, we need to make sure that all of the locations disengaged, and it looks like I've done that. Be very careful with this lock system. All right, we'll put this panel to the side, and we'll be able to gain access to the area where we have those routing features over here. Now, you guys don't have to pay attention to this. This was that accessory I was talking about that is aftermarket. You will not likely have something like that on your bike. So let's now take a look at the routing features. Now we have access here. We can identify the wires that need to be unrouted. And I'm doing that by pushing 2 plugged wires from the trunk in. You can see there's our sub-harness plug, there's our main taillight plug. Now that I've actually successfully unrouted them, the component you saw fall out was that rubber trunk keeper. I'm just gonna keep it on the tire for now, because as we reassemble all these components, I will need to put this back in. All right, so now we can jump up to the top. Okay, now we can actually remove the 3 fasteners responsible for holding the fender onto the bike. These are 10mm hex heads. When I get to the last screw, I will need to support the fender so it doesn't just drop. And as soon as you disengage the threads of the last screw, the fender is free to come out. Just snake out the wire, and this will go on our work surface to be disassembled so we could extract the sub-harness from it and then put that back on the bike. But for now, we'll skip to the next step, which will be to remove the tail fairing. This is done by the removal of these 4 fasteners here and then disengaging the tail fairing from the geometry on the subframe. I'm using a 5mm Allen to do this. And I'm just going to clear this out of the way. The strap will potentially get in the way. Alright, so now I'll just spread this fairing and lift it off just like that. I'm going to put it to the side momentarily here while we work on the tail light. The tail light will come out with the removal of these 2 fasteners. We will keep those fasteners for our new TST Industries taillight. There is also a washer here. We'll also retain that washer. And there are spacers within this rubber grommet, so it's necessary to leave them in place. Otherwise, the new taillight will not fit properly. Alright, once the fasteners are out, we can extract the taillight, making sure we don't snag any of these wires here. I'm going to put that to the side, grab the TST Industries taillight, stretch out the wire, route it in a similar fashion like the OEM taillight wire was routed. And basically just pop it back in place where the OEM taillight was. Now, it's very important to get this tab here in its proper place here on the undertail. It needs to rest in between these 2 tabs protruding from our undertail here. So this tab will fit in between here. All right, and that looks really good. So now I'm just going to replace the Phillips fasteners that I took out from the sides here. All I like to do here is just get them threaded in. Do not tighten them just yet. So before I tighten it all down, I'll make sure that everything is hanging properly here within the undertail. And now give it a snug. And now we can proceed to the next step. All right, now I'm just replace the tail fairing. This is basically the reverse of this assembly. You just have to ensure that you flex the components enough without putting any pressure on the locking features against anything that they may come in contact with, because those are essential to holding all of the geometry together. And then also remembering that this strap will likely get in the way. So working little by little here, I'm able to get all of these components back in position. All right, and once my fastener holes align, I will start replacing these fasteners that I took out earlier. And one thing to remember here, the replacement of these fasteners, is that they screw into rubber well nuts. As you tighten down against this surface, as the head tightens down against this surface, it mushrooms a rubber piece underneath. So there will be no hard stop for this fastener. You can damage it if you over tighten it, so make sure you do not over tighten that. I'm actually going to loosen it just a little bit. I don't like how that went together. Okay, I'm just going to hold it in place where I like it and then tighten down on it. Just trying to ensure that all the gaps around both sides are equal and symmetrical. I've done that here. So we're done with this step, and we can move on. So now it's come time to route the taillight wire through the routing clips underneath here. I'm just gonna route it around, get it back in the trunk for now, and now I'll keep it in place. And now I will route this rubber trunk component through the same routing clips. Okay, if I clip it to its top clip over this portion here, it'll keep it in place. My aftermarket accessory will go in. I will worry about that later. I just want to have all of my wires in the trunk. Now we can replace this component. And just like we unclipped it, we will need to ensure that on the way back in, all of its interference geometry features fit into the windows. So all of these clips will need to engage on both sides. Basically the reverse order of disassembly. The trick is to get them all in simultaneously. What I like to do is get the rear ones in first, and then the side, and then as I press in from the center of this panel here so that the last tab engages with the black undertail, I push with my other hand rearwards and it all snaps together. And now I'll just inspect to make sure everything's engaged and the interference geometry is snapped together. Now we can jump up top and replace the 5 screws that we removed in an earlier step. At this point, I'll be replacing the 5 self-threading fasteners that we've taken out earlier. As I do this, I'll bottom them out right away. I'll tighten them down later. I like to support the red, the painted part from the bottom so that it doesn't flex away and I don't lose placement. Before I tighten it all down, I'm going to place the one that goes underneath the fuse box. And this is my last one, so I'm going to tighten it all down because my placement is preserved. And looking good here. All right, so now taillight wire going to be routed back into the forward compartment here where it'll find its main taillight plug. Plug the taillight in and replace my fuse box. Now I can test the taillight, make sure we have standard taillight functions. We have brake and running light. We are good to go to the next step. I'm just gonna place my aftermarket accessory within the trunk. All right, let's move on. All right, so back on our work table now, we'll take care of the extraction of the sub harness here that will enable us to plug into the bike's harness on one side and have OEM signal and license plate light plugs on the other side. So to do that, we will begin by removing 5mm Allen screws on either side here under the signals. We'll flip the fender over to this orientation. We'll have access to this 8mm hex. We'll need to remove that one as well. When this nut comes out, it'll enable us to remove this reflector here, and that loosens this entire portion. We just pop this out, put that to the side. Now we gain access to the inside here. There is a boot that can slip off, and we'll have access to our plugs that I mentioned before. I'll undo these plugs. I use a small screwdriver to pry up on the lock and withdraw the plug. Same here on the other side, signal plug. And for our license plate light leads, we have a Sumitomo type plug that basically just gets pressed in the center on the lock and withdraws just like that. So now we'll need to get the plug through. I feel like it's easier to get it through from the outside to the inside here. This is our sub harness that we will be keeping and replacing on the bike. The rest of the parts do not get reused. So let's move forward to the next step. All right, so here back on the bike, I will route this wire the way I usually route it, which is the harness plug through the trunk into the compartment underneath the driver's seat, and then immediately plug it in. It's pretty simple. So one locking piece goes to the top, and it makes a little snapping noise. All right. Now our taillight has two plugs here. I'm gonna bring back into the trunk compartment. This is where I'm gonna keep them. The reason why I do that is because I like to have this harness back here for the purpose of access to the license plate light wire. And once you remove your fender for the purpose of the installation of this taillight, you'll have to do something about replacing your license plate light as well as a license plate holder. We do have different videos that illustrate the installation of our components that take care of those needs. Hope you guys check those out. But for the installation of this taillight, we'll just continue with just the steps of the taillight installation. So now these blue and orange connectors are your signal connectors. I will plug our taillight connectors into these and then immediately test the system, making sure that I didn't plug them in backwards. And in fact, I did. I just pressed left and we're signaling right and vice versa. So I'm just gonna redo this, just reverse it. Test it one more time to verify. Left, right. All right. Now I'm just going to slip this protective boot over my plugs and route this wire in the forward portion of the trunk compartment away from anything that can snag it. Then we'll be able to reassemble all the other components in the reverse order of disassembly. If we jump down to the bottom of the bike, I wanted to note one thing here. Following the removal of your fender, you have these three grommets, shoulder spacers left in place. Now vibration will eventually get those out and they can fall on the road surface, hit somebody's windshield, ricochet off, hit somebody. You don't want to do that. Definitely need to take them out. So this is a very good time to take that opportunity. And if you're doing a fender eliminator that goes in this place, you can just install it over this area. Our TST Industries fender eliminator actually gets installed in a slightly different spot. Gets installed here. Let me illustrate that for you guys. We do have a separate video showing that installation. Gets installed here, the license plate sits here. And we also have our fender closeout. There's a nice CNC machined aluminum anodized piece that closes out those nasty holes left behind by your fender. Makes the hole underneath of your bike look very cosmetic and prevents any water and debris from getting inside your trunk compartment. We also have a separate video for that, so check out our channel. And now, without further ado, we'll just replace all the other components in the reverse order of disassembly and we'll be done. All right, so I believe that this installation is complete. I'm going to test the system one more time. We have running light, brake light, left signal, right signal. Now, as you guys can see, the signals are flashing much faster than the stock 85 cycles per minute rate, and that's because we've used LED type signals in place of the incandescent lights that come from the factory. So the signaling system on this bike will now go into something known as hyperflash. To cure that, we include a set of load balancing resistors along with a full instruction sheet on how to wire them in. If you don't want to wire them in, we recommend using one of our LED flasher relays. It installs in between the headlights. On this particular bike, we have an installation video for that, so you can check it out on our YouTube channel or our website. Besides that, I think we are done for the purpose of this installation. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you have any questions, concerns, please place them below in the comment field. On that, I'll just see you guys next time.